Sure. So now your question, it's actually an interesting question, and we get this a lot because people assume that some of these tribunals and forums aren't effective, or they're biased, or the same way that people look at the CCMA and they criticize the CCMA, right? But the Rental Housing Tribunal, when it comes to property questions, and what is the impact of the Rental Housing Tribunal on landlords and tenants? And what are the key aspects that is shaping rental disputes in 2025, and how does the Rental Housing Tribunal actually play into this?
Perfect. So when we're talking about the Rental Housing Tribunal, we must remember that this is an independent body that's established in terms of the Rental Housing Act, which is being put in place specifically to deal with disputes between landlord and tenants within South African society. Okay, so that is the only thing that it deals with. It's a separate sort of entity from our judicial court system, which functions in its own sort of realm. This only deals with those disputes. So please don't think you can take your divorce matter over to them. They will not help you. But they've been established for this specific purpose. Okay, and that's to deal with almost everything within the rental sphere. So any disputes relating to rental payments, deposit payments, potential spoliation on a property, and even interdicts, okay? The Rental Housing Tribunal can make judgments on that. They can subpoena or summons people to come to a hearing, and they can conduct different types of hearings depending on the circumstances of the particular dispute between the parties. So they've got quite a wide ambit to deal with disputes that might exist between landlords and tenants. The one thing they are not entitled to deal with are eviction matters, okay? In terms of our law, because of the Constitution, an eviction must be brought in a court of law and have judicial oversight. So that's going to have to go through a court. But in respect of any other sort of dispute, the Rental Housing Tribunal should be able to help. They also have the ability to make a determination of jurisdiction. And for us, that simply means they can decide whether they are entitled to hear your matter, or whether they will say, no, you have to take this over to a formal court, which is exactly what they do in eviction proceedings. So it's really a helpful body because it can deal with a lot of the issues where ordinarily, in the past, before the establishment of the tribunal, you would have to approach a court. You'd have to find yourself a lawyer. You'd have to pay lots of lawyers' fees to get your dispute sorted out. And the tribunal is a very, very sort of informal process. Okay, it has standard form documents which people can use to inform the tribunal about their particular dispute. It's not so heavy on process as normal in court procedure.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a lawyer, what you're doing most of the time is you're appreciating how standard court procedures work,
Mm-hmm.
and keeping time periods and following those. And that's really where, the long stringed out court procedures often just get caught up in procedures rather than the actual dispute of it,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. So the tribunal dispenses with a lot of those things. And luckily, I've had an experience within the last couple of weeks where a client came to me. They needed a resolve on a particular matter, and I simply referred them off to the tribunal and said, look, have a try with them because they're going to be quicker and more cost effective than me helping you out in the circumstances. And they managed to get a resolve on their particular matter within a week. The tribunal managed to get the matter in, get the various evidence from the parties, and make a ruling all within 1 week, which is something that you would absolutely not be able to get approaching a court. Or at least if you are going to approach the court, you're going to have to do it on an extremely urgent basis to get it done within a week. And it's going to cost you a ton of money to do. So it's really a good forum. I know we have a lot of different forums that have been established in terms of South African law and ombuds, and each of them has their own sort of merits, and you can comment about how each of them functions. But really, the Rental Housing Tribunal is a very, very progressive forum that is very usable for a lot of people, landlords and tenants alike. So we just thought we'd highlight them today, because really they can be very, very effective in the circumstances and save you a lot of time and money going through a formal court process. There's a limitation on when you should probably approach them, especially with your obviously evictions you can't, and then with your maybe more complex and bigger disputes, it might be a better idea to approach an attorney to protect your interests in those circumstances. But Rental Housing Tribunal can still make orders, and those orders are of the same weight as a magistrate's court having handed down the order. So you still have some weight behind that order, which you can enforce once they hand down a ruling. So it is very much, if you've got something that falls within the area that they deal with, it's very much something that you should consider before approaching your attorney, because unfortunately, attorneys, we want to go to court. That's our realm. We want to see things fought out. So something very much to consider.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick.
Perfect. Thanks, Bruno. And then we'll see you next week.
Cool. Awesome. Cheers.
Cheers.